So today we're going to be answering some of your questions. Okay, so first one. I'm learning to draw now and I'm having to deal with something that I believe everyone who's starting needs to face, which is frustration. I'm referring to the drawings looking ugly and you not giving up because of that. I wanted to know from you how it was to deal with in your early stages, and what's your opinion about it. This is such a good topic that I've been thinking about lately, and I've been planning on making a video about it, so this is great timing. It's completely normal to get frustrated. When I started, I've always hated looking at my drawings. They would always feel off and funny, and no matter what I do, I can't seem to get it right, and would eventually feel like quitting. And I think that's just the average beginner experience. Now, as a beginner, most of us would throw away our drawings because we wouldn't want to look at it ever again, because of how awful it was. Well, I was different. Even though my drawings sucked, I always kept them around because I know that I'll eventually get better, and so I could have something to compare my drawings to, and also to see whether I'm improving or not. Now, some of you may say that I was overestimating myself, but I think that's the key here. You need to believe in some sort of vision. You gotta believe that you would someday make it and be a better artist. Believe that you would eventually improve if you just keep drawing every day, trying and learning everything about art. Now, some of you may argue that this is a gamble, and I agree, but in art, you're gambling more than money. You're gambling your time. You either waste your time by quitting, or you could waste enough time to see yourself successful. That's all there is. You gotta risk one more day of terrible drawings until it all eventually works out. And please, for the love of God, don't apply this to actual gambling. So the key here is to have faith that it would be better eventually. It's just a gut feeling that I've always had. I believe that if I just keep drawing every day, I would eventually improve. I guess it kind of worked. Most of you guys probably know that I'm purely self-taught, so I started quite roughly. One day I just decided to draw a lot, but I didn't just draw blindly. I had structure, which I would explain in a bit. I was so confident in my vision that, like I said, I keep all my drawings, even if it's just a random line, a cube, or any shape, and no matter how awful the drawing is. Every time I throw away a piece of drawing, I feel like I'm throwing something valuable. You see, I always had this philosophy. I always think about Pablo Picasso, how he's a well-known artist and everything that he created was something of value. And I like to imagine myself like that. Think of your creation as something someone would value. No matter how much you hate your art, there will be someone that would appreciate it. There's also another way I overcame my frustration. What I would do is do what every artist do, which is look at other people's art. I mostly go to Twitter, Instagram, ArtStation, and most of the time Pinterest. I would look at artists that I think is really good and get really inspired from their works. But wait, some of you would probably get less motivated since you know you can't draw like your favorite god-tier art master. And you also realize the amount of gap that separates you from the master, where you can't even understand how they're able to do that. I know this mindset very well, and I'm here to tell you that this mindset is no good. You gotta do the opposite. You gotta think of it as easy. Because if you think something is complicated, then it would be complicated. Try to focus on analyzing their works instead of thinking about the negatives too much. When I look at other artists, I try to learn from them, and if I'm lucky, some of those great artists would share their wisdom, like their tips and tricks on how they create their art. And the thing that I keep hearing from all of them was study the basic. Learn to draw simple stuff. And that's what I did. One thing I realized in art was you can't take shortcuts in art. You really gotta start with the basics. The reason why your art is bad is not because you're bad at drawing. It's because you just don't know how to draw properly. When you draw a face, you don't actually draw a face. You draw the structure, and it's very complicated. But we can easily simplify by using, you guessed it, shapes. Always start with something that you can actually draw. Everyone can draw shapes. If not, well, you better start practicing. You see, you can't just randomly be able to draw a full-body human anatomy just because you feel like it. That's for prodigies. And since you're watching this video, I'm guessing we're both not prodigies. And that's okay. Starting from zero, build some character. You get to experience it all, and you will always have something to look forward to, since you're starting at the beginning. They say that there's no shortcut in art, and I would agree, but there is a longer road in improving. The reason why I mention using references to practice is because it gives you a standard on what's decent or not. You have to get used to what's a good drawing. That way you can condition your mind to notice if your drawing is bad. So before, you hate your drawing because it looks bad, but now you hate your drawing because you know why, and now you can work up a solution to try and fix it. Drawing is just about learning, and you have to realize that you don't know much, because the sooner you realize, the sooner you get to move on. Always be teachable and always prepare to learn something. The true masters are lifelong students. Okay, so that's it for the first question. I apologize if the first question took very long. Speaking of learning, today's sponsor is a perfect match if you want to learn stuff. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. You've probably all heard of Skillshare by now, but did you know that Skillshare is now more than just a learning platform? It is now a gateway to turning your passion into profit and kickstarting that side hustle you've always dreamed of. With a number of courses, Skillshare isn't just about learning. It's about transforming your skills into tangible success. Whether you're eyeing a flourishing email newsletter, leveraging AI tools for productivity, or launching your Etsy shop, Skillshare has you covered. Led by industry pros who walk the walk, these courses aren't just theoretical. They're grounded in practical, real-world application. It's not just about acquiring skills, it's about making them work for you. But what sets Skillshare apart is the vibrant community. A cheering squad ready to celebrate your wins, share insights, and provide the support you need. It's a collaborative space where your journey is celebrated by a network that extends beyond the virtual classes. So recently, I've been really interested in this Skillshare class called Notion for YouTube Creators, made by Asante Bean, which is kinda perfect since I've been really struggling to manage my schedule, balancing my studies, doing art stuff, and especially YouTube. This class trailer showcases how I could streamline my workflow and really sort out my schedule more efficiently using the app Notion, which is a productivity and a note-taking web application, which I did use for some time but gave up because I was so clueless on how to use it. So if you're like me, this is the perfect time to learn and gain more productivity. And to make it 100 times better, now is the best opportunity to join and get 1 month free trial of Skillshare for the first 500 people. Link would be in the description. Thanks to Skillshare, now onto the video. So next question. How many works of art do you make in a day or a week? I don't know if that's just an internet thing, but I always see art produce so much work in so little time. I'm very inconsistent with my art because now I'm kind of busy, but I could probably do a decent illustration in a day. For a finished painting or illustration, it would probably take a while depending on the quality, but it usually take me around 3 days if it's a commission. If I do 1 illustration per day, it would probably burn me out. The reason why some artists are able to produce art in so little time is either talented or a machine that are sometimes called professionals, and I am neither. How do you balance your time to create artwork and do studies? Asking because I usually get too focused on one or the other and forget to do the other one. Well, actually I don't, but I'm currently trying to fix that, and I stumbled upon a method called making schedules. I know it's very basic, but I'm pretty lazy when it comes to making schedules, but I heard it's pretty effective, so I'll probably try it, which I think could work because now you're gonna have an idea on what to do instead of being clueless and chaotic all the time. I actually kinda did this, but with drawing. Having a dedicated time for drawing, like knowing what to study for today, stuff like that. And looking back on my drawing progress, I think it's very important knowing what to do next. Just to let you guys know, my drawing schedule fell off because I literally can't fit my drawing sessions because of my studies. But I think if you want to excel at something, you need to give it 100% of your attention, because you can't be too greedy or you would lose at both. But only if you're competitive. But if you're chill, you can just do both. Next question. Have you used 3D models or AI in your work? I know you've touched on using AI for inspo before, but I mean in your actual process, and how you deal with it being considered taboo to using them in the art community, and just your view on using cheats or shortcuts in an artistic process. Very interesting question. I do use 3D models as references to draw from time to time, but I've never generated AI art as my own illustration, and probably never would, because it just defeats the whole purpose of creating. It feels like it wouldn't be art anymore. In terms of cheating, I don't think you can actually cheat art. Now, you might think AI art is cheating, but I don't think AI art is actual art in the first place, because personally, I think art has a soul, and it contains a process, where artificial art only needs to be generated with a click. But still, I don't really hate it. It's just like everything. They can be used for either good or bad. AI art is just another tool, and shortcut is not like a bad thing. It's like using a pencil to write, or using a ruler to draw a straight line. These are tools that are meant to make life more easy and to leave more room for creativity and possibility. Like I said before, I'm very neutral about AI. As a non-professional, drawing is something that I enjoy doing, so I don't really mind AI. Because at the end of the day, I really just draw for myself. How long did it take you to perfect proportions in different perspectives? I'm still working on that, and I'll probably never perfect it, but I'll still try. That's why we're here. If anyone says art does not pay the bills, or creative jobs do not pay the bills, what should I say to them? I'm not really sure. I do art as kind of a hobby while getting paid to draw sometimes. Personally, I think I'm getting paid more than enough, even though I'm still a student. I don't know, but I think if you really have the skills to do art, you would do pretty well, and you don't have to be insanely good to be successful. You just have to come up with good ideas and clever content that others would like to see. Who or what was your biggest inspiration to do art? There's a lot of artists that really inspired me, and I can only name a few, but the artist that always pops into my head when asked this question is Ilya Kuvchinov, a Russian illustrator that is currently based in Japan. He's like that artist. He's like the visual definition when you hear the word digital art. I mean, take a look at this. These pieces were the source of why I kept practicing and trying to do art. There's just something about it. It looks really good, and most of the illustrations are based in anime, which I absolutely love. This guy literally revolutionized how we draw anime. So it was two things, anime and Ilya Kuvchinov. There's a lot more, but these two are the ones that I can name on top of my head. How many brushes do you usually use? And which are your favorites? There's only one answer to this, and that is my main brush, the default G Pen from Clip Studio Paint. I do use airbrush and other tools like the watercolor brush for smudging, but for sketching and anything else, I use one brush, which is the G Pen. I try not to complicate my brushes too much because it is the mind and the hand that does most of the work. I would occasionally experiment with other brush and use them in certain situations, but I still go back to my main one. A word of advice, you don't need fancy brushes if you're just starting out. So don't waste too much time finding the right brush. Work with simple. Simple is best. Do you have any OCs? If so, do they have a backstory of some sort? You know what? I just remembered I made some manga characters for my first 2 videos. I don't know if that's counted. If it is, you guys can watch it to know more about them. I want to practice, but I'm always divided between practicing traditional or digital. What do you recommend? This question is very understandable, because before I started digital art, I was so focused on traditional art, and we all know traditional art materials was hella expensive, and I really want to buy one of those high quality markers, the Copic ones, because I saw some manga artists like Yosuke Murata was using one when he was doing illustrations for One Punch Man. I thought I had to get one of those markers if I wanted to get good as Yosuke Murata, and I was broke at that time, so I had to come up with a cheap alternative if I wanted to practice with my full potential. So I figured I could just start drawing digitally. So I bought a really cheap and small drawing tablet that was like 10 bucks. At first I was practicing on both, but drawing digitally was hard. There was so much stuff that you could do there. So I realized I had to leave it myself and start with simple. Using a pencil and paper, I drew like a madman, copying everything, studying basic fundamentals, and I threw the idea of needing expensive art materials to improve. Anyway, after practicing on paper for a while, I think I did manage to transfer some of that stuff that I learned, but it is important to take note that it did took me a month to get used to the surface of a tablet, because it's very different from a paper, but it's very worth it because you could do so much stuff digitally. But then again, at the end of the day, it still depends on what you personally want to do. What skill or ability is more important to practice? Like, what has a large benefit for the time you put in? The skill that I always talk about is the skill of copying. As long as you can copy, you can basically draw anything. Most of my practice are spent around copying something. It's a good way to collect information and gain an instinct on how to draw overall. And that's it for now. You guys asked really good questions. Some are so good that I'll probably need to dedicate a whole video just for one. Thanks again to everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.